Time now for our PIX panel. Joining me today, the aforementioned colleague of mine, Ayana, PIX 11 political reporter, and Nolan Hicks, one of the New York Post's many wonderful City Hall beat reporters. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Let's dive in right with the migrant crisis, Nolan. I really think the city keeps hammering this working paper thing, but it really keeps not happening. So what really is the plan?
The plan is they're trying to come up with a plan that is slightly more sophisticated than just trying to keep shelters open at a pace that slightly exceeds the number of arrivals. And until they can figure out a way to get people from shelter and into apartments, which plays into a whole host of other issues, including the city's housing crisis, they're in a world in which the number of people coming in exceeds the number of people exiting. And so the shelter system keeps growing, and the amount of money the city spends keeps growing too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, while it would seem like getting work authorization for people who are seeking asylum would solve a lot of problems, the bottom line is it's not as simple as President Biden just waking up, signing a form, and just granting work authorization. There are several paths to work authorization. Each of them come with consequences, and the Biden administration is weighing all of that closely. And they've also indicated that they do have some concerns about how the city is rolling out their response. So the Biden administration, it seems like they really want the city to work on their response. And it's unclear if and when this work authorization would happen because of the other consequences that will come along with it.
And there's two more pieces to that. One of which is it's by law, as passed by Congress, that it takes, give or take, 180 days to get someone qualified to work in the first place. So that begs the second question. How many people who have been here for a year or more has the city already gotten into the pipeline in order to properly qualify for work? And there's not a great number for that either. So
they keep throwing out this 3,000 number, but that's only since they kind of got in the game with this 2-3 months ago, right?
Right. So this crisis has been going on for a year. They've only been serious about getting people work papers for 2 or 3 months at this point. And so you have sort of this massive 9-month backlog that they're slowly trying to work their way through. I mean, the city has not been its own best friend in this mess.
Ayana, why was Governor Hochul only able to kind of bring back this sort of vague promise of like helping figure out who can already work? She was with them for 2 hours. You almost expected her to walk out of that meeting with, here's the TPS we've been asking for, and that was not the case.
It wasn't the case, but again, the Biden administration is kind of saying you can speak loudly and you can protest, but we're really not going to be moved until we see the type of changes that we want to see implemented in New York City. So, yes, there are certainly very extremely loud calls for the Biden administration to take some action, but I don't think they're going to be completely moved just by those calls.
Full pivot on topic, but sticking with you, Ayana. The mayor really threw into doubt the move to close Rikers by 2027 and get all those borough-based jails built, 4 of them. He wants City Council to take a look at this based on jail population. Most of the City Council says no. To make a long story short, what's going to happen here?
Well, look, the City Council's plan to close Rikers Island, it was debated extensively back in 2019. It was voted on and signed into law by the former mayor, Bill de Blasio. So this isn't a simple plan. It's something that's been enacted into law. And so also council members, we've heard over and over again, several council members say continuously, Rikers is not the answer. There is so much dysfunction within Rikers. Everyone admits that, even from the mayor, that this dysfunction has been breeding for decades, for generations. And so I don't think that the city council at this point seems like they are willing to go back and revise this plan. And if you do, what's the plan to change Rikers and make it better? There is no plan at this point that advocates are happy with, and that's in part why a judge is allowing there to be a conversation about a potential federal takeover.
No, and I do want to truck right along with something you wrote up this week. Again, another shift, but you talked about a report on the early days of COVID.
Yeah.
And the report showed, and I'm looking down to read because I want to get this perfect, that the deadly early wave, may have started much earlier.
Yes.
Break it down. What did we know? When did we know it? And how many lives could have been saved if we had better detection here? Well,
that's an unanswered question. But basically what the report says is sort of what a lot of people kind of figured, is that the virus was circulating in the city earlier than expected. And for weeks, because of the failures by the federal government to certify testing, and then the continued failures to certify rapid testing, and then it was just failure upon failure upon failure. Basically what you were left with was Andrew Cuomo in the pilot seat and Bill de Blasio in the co-pilot seat, flying blind and bickering the entire time. And so you have sort of mistake after mistake after mistake that maybe possibly could have been allayed with better information. We don't know that. It's a giant might. So the question becomes, if you had known that the number of cases had already hit its peak, which meant that the number of hospitalizations would hit its peak shortly, would Governor Cuomo have signed all those controversial executive orders trying to do everything possible to clear out state emergency rooms to try to make room for a wave that had already sort of materialized. It's just no one really knew it at that point, because hospitalizations are a trailing indicator, right? Like, you get sick, you get kind of sick, then you get very sick, and then you get so sick you go to the emergency room, and over that period, like a period of time has elapsed, right? Like 7 days, 10 days, 14 days. No one got like instantaneously sick with COVID and then instantaneously went to the emergency room. That's not how the disease worked.
Yeah.
So because the only measure we really had at the time was people showing up at the emergency room, every piece of data the city and the state were looking at that point was trailing by a week or by 2 weeks or by 3 weeks, just because of the sheer nature of the virus.
Yeah, and it was really just a jarring time. I remember it felt like 0 to 60. I got a call from a member of public advocate staff that was like, we're finding people who have died in their apartments. And it seems like it just hit. But this really sheds light on the fact that's not how this works. I do need to move on. Subway crime gaining some renewed attention this week. Is there kind of a reality versus perception problem here, or is perception reality, Ayana?
I do think there is a reality versus perception problem, and that's because we've seen some really heartbreaking incidents on the subway, innocent people pushed onto tracks, and when we see that, it certainly seems like there is a major issue, but the overall numbers aren't showing that. So I do think, not just in subway crime, but really within crime overall in New York City, there continues to be this big gap between reality and perception, and it's something that we as journalists talk about and try to wrap our heads around all the time, I think.
I do need to get to the former president's legal troubles. I'll give you a couple seconds each here. Essentially, these trials are beginning to, perhaps Georgia, definitely D.C., a day before Super Tuesday is going to start. I mean, how is this going to impact the primary, Nolan?
Nobody knows. I mean, that's the short answer, right? It's sort of like what is even the metric here, right? Like, you have an indicted politician 4 times running for office. I can't think of a time when that's happened. I mean, typically you have a mayor who gets indicted or you have a governor who gets indicted, and when they get indicted, they drop out of the race.
Brian Benjamin, most notably recently in New York. Ayana, real quick, any thoughts?
No, I agree absolutely with Nolan, and I think that it'll be interesting to see. It seems like the former president's popularity is not waning despite all these indictments.
Ayana, Nolan, thank you both for spending some time with us. We appreciate it, and we will be right back.